Hey y'all, the driver. So we're back over here on ATS. Currently we are fixing to go get a load. This is going to be a short run as long as the load is still there. Let me get back to our job thingy here. This is going to be a little bit off the way I normally do things, but we are looking at taking these guardrails from Spokane, Washington to Kennewick. So with the new game update, to get this thing to work, I'll use my mouse. So we were over here in Colville, but when the new update dropped, it made me respawn, and for some reason I couldn't pick this town, so I just picked Spokane right here. We got us a short little trip that we're gonna go get as long as it's still there. We got like 2 hours to get over there, pick it up, so I think we'll be okay. But we're gonna be picking up in Spokane, and we're gonna go down to Kennewick. So it's a short trip, so I figured I'd take you along for the whole ride. We'll go ahead and run over and get the load and all that good fun stuff. And um, our trip, we've been, just having different topics of different stuff. I have a notebook out. I wrote down a bunch of stuff that a friend and subscriber suggested for things for me here. And I just wrote a bunch of notes down, and we're just going to kind of go over it. One of his first things he was asking about was more about me. So while we cruise over there and cruise our load, we're going to work on that list there. He told me that's probably 50 videos on its own. So let's get out of this parking lot for a start. The parking spots, I can see there's our map. All right, so we need to turn around this way. Actually, we're at a truck stop. We might as well just go ahead and top the truck off with fuel real fast. Should take a minute here. We can get us some fuel. Heck, there's repairs here too. Oh crap! Well, let's go ahead and knock all this out, guys. Let's go ahead and get our truck repaired up and ready to go. We'll get our fuel. We'll go grab our load. So let's see here. We don't want to tune it up anymore. We already have. I always just do service recommendations. It just keeps me pretty much legal and the truck operating good. So there's that. And you can do full repairs, guys. You do it however you want to do it. Everybody's different. So stop trying to grab our fuel. Some of this I have still don't have bound to controller, which is fine. I have the most important stuff, engine brake, bright lights, our horn, cruise control. Right, let's get out of here. So we only have a short trip to go pick up our load, and we may not get a whole lot of time to chat about me, but we'll go ahead and get started with it while we're cruising. Um, so the stuff he was wanting to know more about me. We're not talking about from the day I was born and how many diapers I've had on and all that fun stuff. I think he was more meaning toward my career in trucking. So trucking, I kind of more or less got the trucking bug, we'll call it, when I was just under 5 years old. I think I was probably about four. My uncle was a truck driver. He drove for well over 20 years. And at the time, we were living in Florida. My dad was in the Air Force. And my uncle, he lived in Texas, which is where my mom and a lot of the family is from, anyhow. He happened to be down in the area, and he came by and spent a couple nights with us. And he was able to park his truck on the military base over at a designated area. They had to go through a bunch of permission stuff, to my understandings. And while he was in town, I got to sit in the driver's seat on my uncle's lap, and we drove the truck around the parking lot. So, in a little kid's mind, he's getting to drive this big old truck, And I think my uncle at the time was driving a Freightliner. And I don't even remember what model it was. It was what most of us call the classic, but it was old school style, obviously. And I got to drive it around the parking lot. After that, as a kid, I loved playing with toy trucks and building model trucks, and then cars. Obviously, I mean, I think all of us boys we pretty much play with Matchbox cars or Hot Wheels, Tonka trucks, that sort of thing. So I kind of just got, I guess that's kind of what got me the bug. At least that's what everybody, basically says I did. Um, So yeah, so that's kind of how that got started there. And we are right around the corner, so we'll continue with that in just a second. I may not get through this first one. Like he said, it might be 50 videos for me, so we'll let's get in here and let's see if we can get our load picked up real quick. Hopefully we still have a load. Okay, let's see. Gate. So we talked about a little bit of real life stuff, and as y'all noticed, I use my turn signals. I try to obey the speed limit on here. I do fudge it a little bit. Um, Most drivers in this game, they stop right here and they would just automatically hit the button and enter into buying or purchasing or whatever they're doing, right? Spacebar sets your parking brakes, and you go in there because you don't want that truck rolling away, right? So let's see here. Looks like that load is still available for us, so we're going to take that job. So, yeah, in theory, you'd be releasing and setting those brakes a lot. Now, you don't catch me doing it all the time, just to make the videos a little bit faster. But in theory, you would do that. All right, so where's our trailer? Our trailer is a plain white refrigerator trailer. No, it's not a refrigerator. It's just a box trailer. All right, good deal, good deal. That's weird, that one load that we had. Used a refrigerator trailer to haul used packaging. Let's see. We can get hooked up to this thing. My mirrors are off. Let's fix that. So those who don't know, if you hit F4 on your keyboard, if you're playing on with keyboard, you can adjust your mirrors and your seats. And I'm just going to adjust this left mirror over here because it is off, and I'm just using the D button. I want to be able to see a little bit of my truck right there. I don't know why it was so far out. I don't know what happened. We just had a big major update, so that might have jacked with it. The one mirror is fine, but the other one was a little off. So now we can get lined up. So when it comes to trucking, that's another thing that you're going to need to make sure is you always have them mirrors adjusted just right. Get a friend to help you, get somebody to help you, get them adjusted right. You want to be able to see what's going on all around you. In real life, you've got your two mirrors here. You want that blind spot mirror about like that. I like it a little bit further outward. I don't hardly want to see the truck. That is a blind spot mirror that's designed to make you see basically right beside the trailer tires. So, or actually the truck tires, I mean. So, right there above my GPS box there. Because cars love to hide there for some stupid reason. They love to do it on this side too. This whole side of this truck here, don't even be there. If you're in a car, don't ever be there. Especially on a motorcycle. I can't see on a motorcycle. And little cars, oh my god, like a Prius or like a little, I don't know, like even a Ford Taurus, for example. You can't see them. Now a half-ton truck, I might see you. I may not. Because if you look when I'm sitting in here, this is your view when you're in the truck. So how low a vehicle is, I mean, you got that little window down there. We never look there. A lot of trucks don't even have that anymore. So yeah, sorry. Anyways, a little small rant on that garbage. Now we have our load here. So let's see. Let's get out of this parking lot. Get moving here a little bit. Feels like some of my sensitivities have changed too. Go this way. Yeah, I think some of my sensitivities have changed. I might go play with those again. So you might get to see that too. That's okay. It's all part of playing a game, right? So yeah, like I said, I had my first experience in a truck with my uncle when I was a child. When I got up to teenage age, he offered to take me with him um, cruising around town. At this point, when I got older, and I was probably about 14. Sorry, I had to move that notebook. It's up my arm. Um, and we gotta wait for traffic, so we'll wait for that. But anyhow, I was around about 14 or 15. He talked about taking me with him. At this point, he quit driving over the road, and he was driving dump truck for somebody local in town. Unfortunately, the clocks never lined up. I never got to go ride with him, but we have shared many stories. Um, And after that, I never really thought a whole lot about trucking. I was busy, trying to make a name for myself and get into a job. Um, at around that age, about 12 years old, I actually started doing landscaping with a couple of different companies. One in Texas when we were there, and another one in Florida when we were in Florida. Um, and it was just, something on the side. I made a little bit of money. It's kind of like a weekend job, but it was more during the summers. Um, and I worked for a landscape company doing various stuff, mowing, edging, weed eating, just pretty much anything like that. As I got up in age, where I had my own car, you gonna wait for me? Oh, how nice of you. So, as I got up in age and was able to start driving my own vehicles and things like that, I got a little bit more into landscaping on my own. I didn't have the money to buy equipment, so I still worked for other people, but I started picking up, side jobs where I had like one customer that I would mow their grass every week, every single week, and which was fine. It was what I got paid to do. And then one day they came out and asked me, they said, "Hey, do you do any side work, weekend work, anything like that?" And I don't remember what numbers we came up with, and I probably lost more than I really made. But I ended up one weekend. I went out on a Saturday, and I did a whole bunch of flower bed stuff. I think I moved a bush and some trees, and I don't remember what all I did. I think I was planting flowers, putting down mulch, and who knows what. So I did that for several years. And during all that time, it was back and forth between Texas and Florida. When I was 12, my dad retired from the military, and we moved from Florida to Texas. That's how I got in with the landscaping in Texas. And then while my dad was working overseas, he landed a job working in Saudi Arabia when I was 13. And I want to turn here, next road. So when I was 13, I we went overseas, and I was only able to be over there for 2 years due to the way their schooling system worked. And my dad worked there for another 12 years. So I came back home after 2 years to finish school, and I got into doing the landscaping stuff and various different things. And then after I graduated from school and stuff, I enjoyed landscaping. I enjoyed being outside, doing the mowing and stuff like that. So I decided to make a long term job out of it, and I moved back to Texas to work for the first guy I worked for, and it just kind of bounced around back and forth. At this point, I was 19, and I worked for that guy for a couple of years until I kind of started seeing the darker side of this guy. He was only paying me $400 a week to work for him salary, which to me seemed like good money, but in theory it really wasn't. Um, I worked a lot of long, hard hours for the pay that I made, and got to where I just didn't really enjoy it. So during all this time, I'd made new friends in Texas while working, and one of those friends that I met, became friends with, he was a truck driver. He worked for his uncle, and what they were doing was they were pulling what we call hopper bottom, which is what you see the grain trailers on here are. And if you play Farming Simulator, it would be like the Timptys, the Wilsons, things like that. So that's what they were pulling. So I got to ride with him, and I rode with him a few different times. I'm like, this ain't too bad. And of course, what he did was different than what I ended up doing. So fast forward another year or so, and I rented a house in Fort Worth, Texas, and everything's going pretty decent over there. I made friends with the current neighbor at the time, and at that point, I was working for a record company. I was part time driving a tow truck and part time working in the yard doing cleanup, keeping tarps on cars, dealing with things like that. And I wasn't happy over there. Nothing against tow truck drivers. I know not all of them are, but there's a lot of tow truck drivers that are crooks, and I started seeing that in our yard. And I actually pointed out one time to the big boss, and I kind of find out he was a crook too, because I actually got threatened to be fired if I didn't keep my trap shut, more or less. So I decided that tow truck wasn't for me. And the guy next door to me that I was just speaking about, um, he was needing somebody to work on the docks at his warehouse. So I put an application and I got the job with him. So when I started working there, I was just driving a forklift and doing various things at the warehouse. I worked nights. So I went to work at 10 p.m. and I got off at 6 a.m. But over time that they decided that they needed me to do this and then that. And it turned into, a full-time gig. I was working 5, 6 days a week. And then they eventually had me driving trucks. I was driving box trucks, the vans, things like that. When I would come in, I'd come in around 10, sometimes even earlier, and I would help out with the night shift. And then everybody was gone by 11 o'clock at night, usually 11 or 12. And after everybody was gone, it was just me on the dock. After that, I was just loading trucks and trailers, moving trucks and trailers in the yard. And then they got to where they started having me do a deal where, because I was already there, where I'd have to leave the yard at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go over to Dallas. And I can't talk about what I was doing over there, but I had to go over there real early in the morning. Am I exiting up here? Yes, I am. Excuse me, coming back. So I would do that. So that's when I started kind of driving. And mind you, on the yard, you don't have to have a license to drive a commercial vehicle on the yard because you're on private property. So I was getting all kind of practice in a tractor trailer and air brake box trucks and things like that. So I was getting all kind of experience. Do I need to be in that lane? I guess it didn't really matter what lane I was in, huh? So yeah, I started there. And so after driving around on the airport with no commercial license, I went ahead and got my permit. And I know I've talked about when you go through your licensing process of getting your permit and doing all the right hoops and all that garbage. So I went and got my permit, went down, took my written test. It took me 2 tries to get my written test done. And basically they had a scoring system at the time. You had to score at least 85% or higher to pass your test. And the first time I took the test, I scored 83%. So I came back the second time and retook it, and I scored a 92. So that was a big improvement anyways. And it gave me the ability to read the book a little more and all that stuff. So then with my newfound permit, I told the office that, hey, I got me a permit, and now I want to really learn to drive a truck. So their idea of really learn to drive a truck was throw me a set of keys and say, have fun. They didn't take somebody and put somebody in the truck with me like you're supposed to do. And in a way, it wasn't horrible, but you're still on public road. And I probably should have never done it, but it's how I got my experience. After working for them for a short time after that, we got into a lot of disagreements because I even asked about using their trucks to go take my driving test in and things like that because I found out I could do that. And they wouldn't let me do it. And for a while, I didn't understand why. And then later on, I learned why. And the reason why they didn't want me to was because their truck couldn't pass a basic morning inspection, a pre-trip inspection. And that's why they didn't want me doing it, with their trucks. So I'm like, okay. So I went on and I ended up quitting because we had a lot of disagreements. If you've watched any of my other videos or listened, I talked about that I did the rent me truck thing, and that truck cost $250. My dad paid for it, which I really appreciate him doing. And I went and got my test done. Did one practice drive. The guy said I was good to go for the test, so I went and took the test, the driving test. I failed it on my first day, the driving test, and the reason I failed it was because they have you do everything you're supposed to do. So the first thing they have you do is you do your pre-trip walk-around inspection, which is checking everything, and then they have you do your air brake bleed-down test. And then once you get done doing that, then you can make sure your wipers are working, that your washer fluid's there. You've already checked all your lights, kicked all your tires, all that stuff. And you go do all that. Come on, car. Let's go. But I need to be in the left lane. So when I so every time I reached over to put the seatbelt on in the truck, they would turn my attention to one thing or another. And the instructor I had, she was pretty mean. to put it nicely. She was real rude and stuff like that. But she kept attracting my attention to other things. And then she finally said, okay, let's go. And I went to do something, and she said, we ain't got time to sit here all day. Let's go. So I just threw it in gear and I took off. As soon as my front tires hit the street, I failed because I forgot to put my belt on. Part of the driving test is you cannot break any state law, state or federal law. And that state law was for not putting my belt on. She did let me continue the test. Um, After we stopped at the first traffic light, she told me to put my seatbelt on, which I didn't have a problem doing. I mean, I hate belts, but I went ahead and put it on. And we went around and finished the rest of the driving test. I passed everything else with flying colors. And then when we came back, she said, "Okay, but you still have to come back tomorrow. You don't have to retake all these, your parallel parking and all that stuff. But you do need to come back and redo your test again." So I didn't have to redo all the parallel parking and things like that, the backing maneuvers. All I had to do was just go in and just basically redrive. So I went back in my second day, and I got a completely different lady, really nice lady. And we got in the truck and we did all the usual stuff in the morning, checking for air leaks and all that stuff. And we go to get ready to go, and she's looking at the note. She's got a clipboard. She's already knows what I've failed and what I haven't failed on, and says, "Okay." She goes, "Well, it looks like you passed everything, but you failed because you forgot to put your seatbelt on." And I looked over at her and I said, "Yes, ma'am, that was my fault, but things just happen." And she looked at me and she goes, "Put your seatbelt on, young man." I'm like, "Okay." I threw my seatbelt on and she said, "Let's go." So that's how I ended up with my CDL. And we're going to leave it right there because, as you've seen, we delivered and all that good fun stuff. And I didn't even get a screenshot. I didn't even get a thumbnail, guys. Oh my God. I didn't get a thumbnail for this video. Is the spreader still there? It is still there. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. This is going to be our thumbnail for the video because I forgot to get a thumbnail while we were cruising. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch y'all in the next one. I'll see you.